calendars, all right? We all use calendars. And as useful, important, and as nice as it would be, our modern world, the world that we live in today, with all its knowledge and technology, right? With all the fast-paced lifestyle that we all have, the world doesn't have one universal way to tell time. And it's what I mean. For example, each month has a different name depending on the country you go to, right? And different names for different months. Uh, there are religions in the world today that use the moon, others use the sun. And, come to think of it, Ethiopia, Ethiopia, which, like Egypt, is an enlightened, complex, and uh, sophisticated culture that gave the world civilization, history, knowledge, technology, etc. It's in terms of calendars, talking about calendars, in terms of calendars, it is about 7 to 8 years behind our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, which is what, like I said, which is what those of us who live here use. So we're talking about the Ethiopian calendar, for example. It has 12 months of 30 days each. Uh, 30 days each, plus about 5 or 6 what is called intercalary or epagomenal days. I have those are some big words I'm using here, right? Which makes a 13th month. So when I say intercalary, intercalary, when I say intercalary month, or when I say epagomenal, epagomenal, these two words that I just used means or refers to days within a solar calendar that are outside any regular days. Okay, so what I mean is each year is about 5 days short of the astronomical year. I'm talking about the Ethiopian calendar. And so to compensate for these 5 extra days, to compensate for these 30 days for each month, 5 extra days are added to the year, and then 6 in leap years, so that's what we mean by epagomenal, right? Days. But now this is because of alternate calculations that they used to determine the date of the announcement of Jesus Christ's birth. So that's why they have a difference in terms of calendar year, right? So that explains why their calendar is 7 years behind. So, for example, its new year corresponds to September 11th of the Gregorian calendar, the Gregorian calendar, the calendar that we use, or it's September 11th or September 12th. If it's a leap year, of course. So, in talking about what I'm talking about, this Monday coming, which will be September 11th, will be what will be 2016 for uh, Ethiopia in terms of their calendar. So they're sort of like what, about 7 years behind us. So if you want to grow younger, well, then move to Ethiopia, and it will be 2016 for you instead of 2023. But you see, I'm talking about calendar, right? Now, that's Ethiopia. That's Ethiopia. That in the world which we live today, there are about 40 different calendars. 40 different calendars. Uh, there are several countries and religions that have their own calendar. That have their own calendar. which they use to track the days, the months, the weeks, the years, you know, just the same way as we do. We have a calendar every year, you know, right about this time, new calendars for 2024 have already started coming out, right? In other countries, they have different calendars, different days, different years, but they use their calendar to mark their time. They use their calendars to mark their days, their weeks, their months, and years. So clearly, it's been working for them. Now, all in all, there are at least five main types of calendars, and here you can see it on the screen here. There are five main types of calendars in the world in which we live today. You know, so the calendar that we have, it's not the only calendar. It's not the only. There are different calendars. So, for example, the first one that I have here, the solar calendar. The solar calendar is the Gregorian calendar. It is based on the planet's position around its its star, right? And this type, the dates in this calendar indicate the season or almost equivalently the position of the sun. You know, so when I say position of the star, that's relative to the stars. Okay. Now, the Gregorian calendar, widely accepted as a standard in the world. That's what we use. Huh? It's an example of a solar calendar. Some who use it are Christians, Western countries. It's sort of that, right? Now, then there's the lunar calendar. Lunar calendar, you see the example there, used really by Muslims or yeah, by Muslims, right? And this type of calendar is based on the monthly cycles of the moon's phases. You know, for example, so like I said, Muslims use this type of calendar. So I talked about one here. Oh, sorry, please. Let me go back there. So I talked about this one here. I talked about this one here, the lunar calendar. Then there's also the third calendar in that world today, the lunisolar calendar. It uses both the sun and the moon, and that's what they call it. Uh, the Jews use. No, this lunisolar calendar, right? Is like I say, it's a combination of lunar calendars and solar calendars. For example, Jews used it, the Chinese used it, the Buddhists used it, Burmese, Kurdish, Hindus. You know, there are different people who use different calendars. You know, and the Jewish calendar is a lunisolar calendar based on calculation rather than observation. When I say observation, I'm talking about visual observations of the young moon, the crescent moon, you know, that was used in ancient times. Okay. So, you know, every year when we talk about the Passover, you see the Passover is not a fixed day or time, unlike when we have in what do you call it? Easter, right? But the Passover is not on a fixed day. It goes according to the lunisolar calendar that the Jews use. So sometimes you see Passover happening late or early in spring, right? So we see these differences in these calendars. And then of course there's the seasonal calendar. You know, it relies on changes in the environment. You know, and so you have, depending on who are using it. In some places, so we have the wet season, and then the dry season. You know, instead of using the lunar or the solar calendar. So some indigenous peoples uh, used it in the past. You know, some cultures used it until, you know, in some places, when I say indigenous people, for example, here in North America, because the Europeans came and savage this continent. Everybody's using the Gregorian calendar, but before some of the indigenous peoples in North America, they used a different kind of calendar, totally different from what we used to do. Then of course we have number five, the special purpose calendars. Some are based on abstract perpetual repeating cycles which are of no astronomical significance. But people, there are certain groups that use that. Some calendars are regulated by observations, not computed or tabulated at all, in terms of celestial events. They're just observation, So these are some of the calendars in the world today. Like I said, so we have these five main categories or types of calendars, and like I said, there are more than 40 or about 40 that are in use in different parts of the world. So our calendar is not the only calendar. The calendar that we use, January, February, March, it's not the only calendar that is out there. There are different kinds of calendar. Now, what's the difference between a lunar and a solar year? Now, a lunar year is based on the time it takes for the moon to go through each of its phases. New moon, half moon, full moon. And then a solar year is the time it takes for the Earth to complete one revolution around the sun. So, again, just for your interest, because it's important. Now, look at this. By the time of what's name Julius Caesar, Rome had several inaccurate and diverse calendars that were so out of step with nature. You see, all that I'm talking about, the moon, the sun, wet and dry. It's all about nature, right? So, by the time Julius Caesar became emperor, Rome had different kinds of various a mishmash of calendars that were so out of step with nature that Caesar wanted to what? To replace them all with a single official calendar. So what did he do? He ordered what's his name? A Greek by the name of Sosigenes, a Greek astronomer and mathematician, to straighten things out for him. Because look, I mean, think about it. You live in the same country. One region says, "Well, this is the calendar we." So when it's January here, somebody says, "Well, it's December. It's December for us." That kind of thing, So he wanted a unified official calendar. So Sosigenes was the one who set out to do this. You know what happened? At Sosigenes' suggestion, Julius Caesar adopted a modification of the 365-day Egyptian calendar. Now, when I say that, I want us to see how the origin of what we have today came from Africa. I want us to understand that the importance of the role of Africa, in those of us who are of African descent. This is important. So Sosigenes adapted a modification of the 365-day Egyptian solar calendar, but with an extra day every fourth year, which is what we call the leap year. Right? But this didn't work out. What he did, it didn't work out. So unable to alter the movements of the heavens, Sosigenes, because he doesn't have control over over nature, right? Sosigenes solved the problem by temporarily adding nearly 3 extra months to the calendar, giving the year 46 BC 445 days. See, giving the year 446 BC 445 days in that year instead of 365. So you can see how the people born that year must have had a lot of fun later, just trying to figure out their birthdays. 445 days. So trying to figure out their birthday. But it wasn't until Pope Gregory the 13th, that's in the 1500s. Pope Gregory the 13th commissioned the calendar that we use today. That's why it's called the Gregorian calendar. See that? So he commissioned this calendar that we have today, which was what? A revision of the Julian calendar, which was a revision of the Egyptian calendar. I'm going all the way back now. So Egyptian calendar, Sosigenes worked on it, and then it became the Julian calendar, but it wasn't working out. Pope Gregory came back later. He also worked on it, and then he also tampered with it. And then we went back to what? The 365 days again. The Gregorian calendar is an imitation of the Egyptian calendar. See the thing? So in 1752, when the British Empire started to use the Gregorian calendar, September 3rd became September 14th, which means that what? Which means that 11 days disappear from British history. It's all that. 11 days disappear from British history. So, for example, if your birthday was February 11th, it moved to February 22. You see what I mean? So you can see how a person in this situation could have celebrated his or her birthday twice that year, or depending, he could have celebrated both. He could have celebrated one birthday twice in the same month. In the same month. In the same month. So now, why am I talking about calendars? Why am I referring to calendars? Now look at what we have here on this screen. What calendars? What do they have to do with Leviticus 23? And I hope you read it, right? Or with feasts in the Old Testament. First of all, you want to write this down. First, the major Old Testament Israelite festivals were in calendar order. So anytime you pick up your Bible and you turn to Leviticus 23, remember it's about a calendar, God's calendar.